Okay, well, good morning, everyone. I'm tasked with being in between you and lunch right now, having a little talk about the varieties that Colin just did a good job of giving an explanation of. These new varieties, I'm going to talk a little bit about their pedigree and the foundation of the breeding program, and how it's contributed to the development of these new varieties, and how it's exciting that as we continue to utilize these what we call basic or wild lines have been developed over time, that we continue to see continued increases in yield and so forth. But let's talk a little bit about the basic breeding program. Well, it's breeding with wild or unimproved relatives, and it's, for instance, we might take a variety such as a wild grass like this called the Saccharum spontaneum, and cross it with a noble cane, and you end up with a sort of a relatively genetically complex intermediate, hybrid, which is a blessing and a curse. Usually the hybrids usually have a lot of vigor and some of the disease resistance and so forth of the wild type, the wild material, but they carry some of the bad as well, some of the high fiber, and so it also makes them complex genetically speaking when we try to evaluate them with molecular markers and molecular techniques. But as we do various back crosses, which I'll talk about later, we eliminate those bad traits and we increase the good. For instance, the varieties that they're talking about have a lot of wild material in their background, but have relatively low fiber of about 10 to 11%. So, and really good sugar as well. So why do we bother doing this? Well, it increases the diversity. It brings in some of these genes and traits of adaptation that we don't have in the original sugarcane material, such as disease resistance to mosaic, ratoon stunt, and other diseases, and insect resistance, and cold tolerance, and also blood tolerance, retaining ability, and many other traits for adaptation. And it's worked. I mean, with the history in the past, we wouldn't have an industry if it hadn't been for integration. For instance, the varieties that were brought in from Java were a result of integration of wild material to resist mosaic. So if it weren't for integration, we wouldn't have a Louisiana industry, and it certainly wouldn't look like it would today. Okay, now let's meet the family, so to speak. Okay, we've got Saccharum spontaneum there on the left, tall grass, high fiber and low sugar. Robustum, which is sort of similar to the old noble canes, but with a little bit lower sugar. Here's a Officinarum, which is the old noble cane types, which is the original sugar cane from New Guinea. It usually has good sugar and low fiber, but not very good, very susceptible to disease. Barberi and Sinense are actually in the pedigree of some of our material also, and they're actually probably natural interspecific crosses between Officinarum and Spontaneum. And then we've got Erianthus and Miscanthus, which are distantly related genera that have valuable genes but are more difficult to integrate into the program. Okay, let's talk a little bit about 5615-8, which has been very important for Louisiana. I'd say it's the ancestor of modern Louisiana sugarcane for the most part. And it was a result of a cross back in 1959. So it gives you an idea of how long the process takes. And this is just a little flow chart that doesn't give you all the details of a pedigree, which I'll talk about in a minute. It gives you kind of the idea that you have to go through a process of you get the initial hybrid, the F1 hybrid, and cross it back to a commercial cane, and then you get it back cross 1, then to a commercial cane, back cross 2, and then back to a cane, and you repeat it. And this is the line that led to LCP 85384, and HOCP 85845, and also more modern, you see the HOCP 96540, 299, and etc. So you see how important these lines are. Of course, and also the back cross 6.
These two means are going to conflict at some point.
HO 07 613 is also an important, is a parent of 885. Okay, and this is a new line that we're a little bit excited about based off from SES 6. And this was made from a cross back in 1969. So 10 years later, and the other one, and it's gone through several back crosses of its own. And it's resulted in these parents here of HOCP 05 918 and 920, which are siblings of each other. And these are the parents of the two releases that we had today. We talked about today. These have excellent selection rates. They produce high yielding cultivars, and we have a tendency to pick these out of the field as they look really good. And so far, last in 2020, it was about 17% of the parents had this lineage, and we were assigned about 4% from commercial assignments. Now, this is called a fan chart. This is for 885. They'll show you this, and on the left-hand side, you can see the mother and the father here. You see on the mother side of 885, you can see plants that you may, in cultivars you're familiar with, such as 540, and then the father 540, the 384, and then its father 407, 77 407, which is a 56-15-8 line. And then on its father's side, you can see it's you can see here is its mother 856, US 8616, and then US 7801, and this is the SES 6 line. But if you also notice, some 58, 615, 58 also gets incorporated in this cross as well, showing that, that these lines are being crossed and intercrossed thanks to Dr. Hell as she works through these and goes through the various back crosses, and we're getting good combinations that are developing the commercial program. So thanks for that. And it's a similar, as you can see here, for L14267, except that it's on the mother's side is where the SES 6 line comes through with 05 918, and then it's on the father's side, which has a 56-15-8, which has the 77 407, and then 384 on its father's side of 283. So you can see here that these commercial cultivars are a combination of several different, basic lines or integration lines that are converging together to form the great varieties that we have right now. And that these aren't even all of the lines considered, and don't count even the foundational lines that have the spontaneous material that were used for the initial crosses for Mosaic. So in conclusion, basic breeding has contributed greatly to Louisiana, and for instance, LCP 85384, 540, and 299, and it continues to contribute with L14267 and HOCP 885. And I'd like to thank Dr. Hale for her continued work as she continues to go through the process year after year to make these back crosses, and for the slides she shared with me. And with that, any questions?